Hey everyone, and welcome to our Catalyst Spotlight featuring MaryLynn Suchan, who is not only a Catalyst alum, but also a former supervising producer of the festival. She joined us from 2017 to 2019, and for the last year, she's been a showrunner's assistant on Grey's Anatomy, Rebel, and Station 19. Welcome, MaryLynn.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's so weird to be on this side of the StreamYard.
It is. It's a reversal of roles. You've come in front of the table once again. Yeah. That's fantastic. So what would you think is the smartest thing that you had leading up to your current gig? I know that everybody always wants to know, how did you get staffed? How did you get a gig in the industry? Every path is different. But what was the smartest thing that you did leading up to this opportunity?
You know, I think the smartest thing that I did was always having my resume ready to go, updated, tailored to the position of being an assistant. Mm-hmm. And so my current job as a showrunner's assistant, it was literally one night a friend who is a writer from the last room I worked on reached out and she said, hey, can you send me your resume? And I just said, yeah, sure. I was like on my couch watching TV. It was maybe 10 at night, sent it off to her and it was ready to go. And then the next day I received an email to interview. So just always being ready, always having that resume good to go, because when people are looking for applicants, I mean, within 3 to 5 minutes, they just receive 30.
Yep.
So
very quick. Mm-hmm. Ready to go.
Yeah.
And excellent advice. You've been a showrunner's assistant before for Netflix. How did that compare with working on primetime shows?
Whew. It's so different. And you think it's going to be similar because assistant work is assistant work, right? But the nature of the two are very different. So on the Netflix show that I was on, we were just in the writing phase for my entire contract and heading towards pre-production, but not even in it yet. So it was just this wonderful time. The writers had all this room to breathe and create and break story. But then when you go to network and primetime, it is, you are writing an episode while another episode is in pre-production, while one episode is being shot and another episode is being edited. So it's just, you have to remember so much more. There are so many balls you're juggling at one time. It's like, okay, so my boss needs to read the script. She needs to watch that cut. She needs to meet with the room to break that story. Okay, where's my cup of coffee?
Wow. So many plates in the air at the same time. That's incredible. Yeah. So the pace is really what's the most different between those two gigs and what's happening all at the same time. What was your typical day like this past year?
This past year, oof. Typical is such an interesting word.
There is no typical. So next question.
Right. Typical, yeah. Again, going back to how you have so many balls in the air, it's knowing what each episode is doing for each show. So, okay, do we have to have a meeting? Are we doing a table read for this episode? Are we having tone meetings? Are we having producers meetings? Each show has all of these meetings. So making sure that you have one, and then after you have that one, let's schedule the next one. And so a typical day is a lot of meetings, a lot of calendar management emails, because of course my boss is very busy running Station 19 and Grey's Anatomy. So a lot of people are coming at me for her time. So being the assistant is being the liaison that is protective of that person's time, while also making sure they're doing everything they need to do and helping them prepare for that. Mm-hmm. I don't know if I'm even answering the question properly, but.
Oh no, I think you are, because it sounds like there's a volume of meetings, and those are going to be different from, where you are in the season, where you are in the episodes, but also shifting between shows and things like that you're kind of the gatekeeper to her calendar, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And there's this, and then also with the creative side, she has to read and give notes on scripts, or if it's a script that she's writing, I need to make sure I carve out that time. And each showrunner, like all of us, we're all different in terms of when we're most creatively active. Like I'm more of a morning writer after 2:00. I'm like winding down from my day. And my boss is similar, where she likes to write more in the morning. So knowing those things about your showrunner, so that way they have that protected time to write their episode, but then also go read this other episode. But now we have a producers meeting, and then, oh, you wanted to be on set for that scene, right?
Goodness. Oh my goodness, to juggle all those things. Especially, we know anyone's that's been on set before, you know that those things can change. Oh, we had a weather issue. Now we're bumping that up. So now the scene that she wanted to be there for is now happening at a different time than we thought, right?
Right.
That's constantly evolving. But it sounds like it's a tremendous amount of trust that a showrunner endows you with to be the guardian of their calendar, be the guardian of their time, and to ensure that they're getting to work on what they most wish to, what they've prioritized at any given moment. Are you expected to be in the writer's room when she is, or are you on set when she is, or you're kind of central and facilitating all of those things?
Wherever Krista goes, my boss, that's where I am. So if she's in the writer's room, I'm there. If she's on set, I'm there. I'm just her shadow, going wherever she needs to go, taking notes or reminding her, oh, the scene, this is the part where you wanted to watch this or look out for that. So I'm wherever she is.
Always present. I love that. That's a fabulous way to learn, I would imagine. What were the surprises along the way? What have you been learning being in that shadow position and kind of as a voyeur to everything that's happening?
I think what I've learned is that we all know a showrunner is in charge of everything, right? But I think seeing really how Krista manages the team has been the most eye-opening, because at the end of the day, it is a ton of different creative voices coming out with opinions, and people have different personality traits, and how do people mesh well together? And Krista is great at bringing wonderful people together, but still sometimes you're going to have a disagreement. There are going to be things. So seeing how she is a leader of her team and still has an open ear for everybody. And then not only says, I'm going to implement things to make this a stronger show, make this a better team, but she does it.
Right.
It was very inspiring, because we hear a lot of things in life in Hollywood of people who want to be supportive and do things, but there's a lot of talk, and she's a lot of action. And so I think that was the most eye-opening thing, is seeing really what kind of leader you need to be a showrunner. You can be a great writer, you can be a great multitasker, but you also have to be a great manager of people.
Yeah. And a team player, right? Involving everyone, making everyone feel engaged and supported in that way. It sounds like she's incredibly receptive. And I would imagine that would be a remarkable example to spend time with someone, especially who's doing it on 3 different shows. At one point, it was Station 19, Grey's Anatomy, and Rebel, which has to just be outstanding to manage 3 different sets of 3 different sets of crews. Was there crossover between shows? Were there certain people that you had in common for each of the shows in terms of her team or writers' rooms or anything like that?
A couple producers would cross over on different shows, but really it was three different teams. So if I'm scheduling a producers meeting, I need to reach out to this assistant on this show, this assistant on that show, and that assistant on that show. And so there was a lot of balancing who is who. And the woman who trained me is just the most wonderful human in the world, Kasha Foster. And so when she was training me, she would go, okay, so the line producer on this show is who? And I'd say, okay, this person, who's their assistant? That person. So then the line producer on this show is who? And she would just quiz me so it could all get drilled into my head, because then eventually I took over her position.
That's incredible. And what a lovely way to hand the baton off, to make sure that you had that facile and ready to go, to make sure you could switch between shows and be absolutely ready to go. What do you think was your best skill set in undertaking gigs like these? And what skill set have you acquired on the job?
Ooh, I think being good at multitasking and being calm under pressure is extremely important in being an assistant, because as an assistant, your job is to make your boss's life easier, and everybody's different. So you have to be willing to be thrown curveballs, switch the whole day entirely, whatever it is. I mean, it's show business, so everything can change on a dime. So staying calm under pressure and multitasking are skill sets that I've had, I think, from serving tables for so many years.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe being a middle child, you know, a combination of the two or something like that. But that was something I felt like really strongly about that I already had. And then acquiring on the job, trusting my intuition, because everybody's different, and just trusting my gut instinct. That's like, I don't think she saw this email, even though she said she did. Let me go back one more time and just double check it. She'd be like, oh no, I didn't look yet, you know, or whatever. Or we're on set all day and I'm like, no, you need this apple right now. You need to eat something. And she's like, you're right, I do. I'm starving. And I'm like, yes, please.
Yes.
You know, and just trusting that gut, because sometimes for me, I can be very I love protocols. And so I love my black and white. This is right. This is wrong. This is what we're doing. But there's that in between gray area where this might be not within those parameters, but I know I need to think of this, or I should mention that, or I should take the lead on this.
Of course. And in our conversations before, you've said that Krista's been really receptive to that, to be like, yeah, I would like to hear what you think and things like that, which is, again, part of that trust and part of that trusting your own instincts, but her trusting you as well, that your instincts are active and valid, and that you have permission inherent in your job. You have permission to say, you know, I feel like you would have responded to this by now, so let me just kind of nudge that, and that you can trust that that's not going to fly back at you, right?
Right.
Excellent.
Yeah.
What would you say, or how did your Catalyst experience help you prepare for the work at this level?
Well, there was a point last season where I told Kasha, the woman that trained me, I said, every day of this job feels like every day at the festival, where you're just, there's a million things I was juggling at the festival, and not always even well. Like, I'm not saying I did it all perfectly, but I think that experience of being like, you're going to get through it, and then you can analyze how you could have done it better, and you're going to try again, and you're just going to keep going until the train is running smoothly. And the best you could do is the best you can do. So I think Catalyst helped me with that. It also helped me because I literally moved to LA because of the connections I made at the festival. So that first year I produced it, executives were like, when are you moving to LA? You would work if you moved to LA, so you should probably make that leap. And then I set up a trip after that to talk with all of them here in LA and see if I even liked the area or felt safe or whatever. And then 6 months later, I did.
Incredible. What a leap of faith to sort of uproot everything and trust that net would reveal itself as you got there, with preparation also, but just to know that you were wanted there, that there was an environment calling you out there to say, come and work with us, come and play with us. I think that's remarkable. If anybody is just joining us and you have any questions for MaryLynn about being a showrunner or anything like that, please feel free to drop them in the comments and I'll happily ask her. And I would love to know, what advice do you have for those who would love to be in your shoes?
Ooh, to be in my shoes, it is a lot of networking. It is about a lot of who you know, because, and I know they say this all the time, so I want to provide things that are new and you haven't heard.
Right.
But when you think about the hours that we spend working, you do want it to be with good people. You do want it to be with people who you know can just dive in and find their way, who are team oriented, not someone who's going to be like, no, I know what I'm doing. I got it. It's like, no. Every room is different. Every show is different. Take a moment to, read the room. I would say getting out there and networking. I know it's hard right now with the pandemic,
Right.
but there are so many amazing writers out there who would take time, I think, to talk to you on Zoom or email back and forth and see like what you're doing, what you're up to, and help share their stories so that way you can hear of how other people have done it. And keep in touch. And I think a lot of people, when they network, they go for the ask way too soon.
Yes.
And I've told several of my friends this. I'm like, just make the connection, plant the seeds, and don't ask for a thing.
Right.
But always have an update when you reach out to people. Be like, hey, I just finished another edit of that pilot I told you about. I'm feeling good about it. I got stuck on this. Do you have advice for that? And build a relationship. Or, oh my gosh, I just tried out this new donut because I know you said that one time you loved donuts. So here. And so you show people that you care about them as a human.
Right.
Besides just what they can give you. Because when you just go for the ask, it really comes off like you just want something. It's just a transaction. It's not, let me get to know you and let it lead to something organically.
You're absolutely right. It's dismissive of their entire humanity, and it's only about the transaction, as you've said, that what can you do for me because of your position and the work that you do, as opposed to, I'd love to be in contact with you as a human being. Look at this new yoga class that I found out. I know that you said that you like this, or have you been to this dog rescue? That kind of stuff. Right. It's a relationship over time. And one of the great metaphors I had heard, or analogies up for it, which I feel like is exactly what you're talking about, is you have to come to the party with more than an empty plate. You have to have something to offer, because if you just come with a handout to say, oh, please fill my plate, what can you put on my plate? As opposed to, may I offer this to you? Would you like some of what I have to contribute? How can I help you? It's a very different dynamic. Yes.
And also, I thought of something else. Being very specific about what you want.
Yes.
When I got out here, as creatives who make our own content, we wear a ton of different hats. And we see that as such a positive thing. And it is. But then when you want to get a job in Hollywood, people want to know how they can help you. And they want it to be one specific thing that you need that they can help you find.
Yep.
So really just whatever room you're in, if you want to be a writer, for example, since we're talking about showrunners, then just saying, I want to be a showrunner one day. So I am looking to be a showrunner's assistant or a writer's assistant. And boom, they know exactly how to help you. But if you say, well, I want to be a showrunner, but I also really like producing, and I also want to learn more about line producing. And then they just have birds spinning around their head because they're like, what? Okay. So you don't really have direction is how they visualize it, even though it's just a curiosity, and that's fine. And that's great. Does that make sense?
Of course. Many of us have interests in many different lanes, right? Everybody's a multi-hyphenate, as it were, nowadays, of they enjoy acting and they enjoy producing and they enjoy writing. But if you say, please put me in every column, please do something for me in every column, it's not specific. And it's not something they can easily cross off the list to say, oh, you asked for an opportunity as a writer's assistant. I know exactly who to put you in touch with. There, it's done. As opposed to just think of me always for everything. It's a
I can do it all. It's fine.
To help. Right.
Yeah.
Right. And of course, we know we all can. And yet, when those opportunities arrive, you have to be specific about what the ask is.
Yes.
Where do you want to go from here? What's the short-term goal of what would be next for you?
Well, next I want to be staffed on a show as a staff writer. So that would be the entry-level writing position. So that's my goal from being a showrunner's assistant.
And is there anything, say, the long-range goal? Would you then want to be a showrunner?
I do eventually want to be a showrunner. And I have several concepts that I would love to sell, or right now I just have them as samples. So focusing on that short term at the moment with the long term in mind. Absolutely.
Well, certainly, MaryLynn, you are one to watch. It's so thrilling to see you thriving in the industry right now and being a very busy woman. I do think it's important to underline the fact that you said you're still writing your own stuff, right?
Yes.
You're still creating on the side. It isn't just that being the showrunner's assistant is the end. You know, I got the gig. Now I can plateau. It's I got the gig and I have to find time to devote to my creativity on the side so that I can build from here, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, at any moment, if my boss had the time to read me and she said, hey, let me read 10 pages, I have to have those pages ready. And I say 10 pages because that's pretty much what it would take for her to know if my voice and my strengths and my weaknesses and whether or not she wants to read anymore. So you want those first 10 to be on fire. Yep. And you have to have them ready. And to be an assistant who says they want to be a writer and not have a sample is not the best look.
Yeah. Not congruent with what you're asking for. It's not, oh, get me in the room. Once I'm in the room, I'll write.
Right.
It's I'm writing. I would love to be on a team as I write. Correct?
And I don't say that frivolously because our time is precious. And so it is hard to carve out that time. But I think as much time as you carve out for your job that pays the bills, you also have to carve out for yourself and your personal joy. And do you have a system, any tips that help you do that? How do you carve out the time? Is there a way that you track things on your calendar, or is it about specifically making sure that you leave yourself an hour here and here in your week? How does it happen? On the Netflix show, it was much easier because I would get to the office 2 hours early every day and set up the office and then go to mine and write until the writers came in. And so I had that built into the system. Now it's a bit more tricky because the nature of my boss's desk. But yeah, I try to carve out an hour a day. And some days I can't do it. And I just tell myself, that's okay. You know, it's the nature of the job. Right. But we also, luckily, on both Grey's Anatomy and Station 19, have this mentorship built in. So I get a writing mentor from each show. So having them where it's like, okay, well, why don't you turn something into us in a month, gives me that solid deadline. So I also like to use deadlines for that. So even whether it's a mentor or a writing competition, I'm looking at my to-do list. I'm like, yeah, I think I've written.
Like, wait, did I check everything off?
Did I submit to that one? You know, whatever it is. During the pandemic, I had a writer's group. So every week I wanted to make sure I had pages or edited pages or a concept to talk about that I wanted to break. So whatever tool works best for you, you just have to really be self-disciplined to implement it.
And I just realized that in the comments, Caris Vujcec asked the same question similarly, and I'll just post it here. But it's almost a silly question for me to ask because I'm going to top that with, do you have time for exercise, for yoga, for self-care? Like, how do you balance all of these things? It just sounds like you have very long days. And like, when do you get to MaryLynn?
Yeah. Right now, I'm fortunate that going from 3 shows to shoot 2 shows has taken a lot off of my plate. Not only 3 to 2, but the third, Rebel, was her baby and was being built from the ground up, where Grey's and Station are these wondrous machines that don't need as much coddling, right? So right now I feel much more balanced so far this season because of all of that. But there was a point last season where I wasn't exercising every day. And then when it came to the weekend, I just needed to rest and spend time with a friend or two and have one activity. Yeah. But I just had to get through the rest of the season, and I couldn't be hard on myself that I wasn't writing at that time. Right. You know what I mean? Right. So
it feels like you can't keep all the tanks full all the time, but you can tend to this one and nudge it, and tend to this one and nudge it in relationship to what really needs your attention at the moment. Right.
Yeah. So right now I am in a nice place where in my morning I can wake up, get ready, send my boss her first email, do a bit of writing, and then we get into our day. You and then maybe after work or sometimes midday, I go on a walk, or I just got rollerblades recently and I'm really
Yay.
loving trying to use them again. And I'll do that. Or have an activity on the weekend too. I'm going horseback riding this weekend. So
I love that.
I think being gentle on yourself is an important part of it. Being self-disciplined, but also telling yourself, I can't be creative if I don't get like 12 hours of sleep tonight because I'm depleted, is also very important.
Right. So it sounds like it's the balance of the discipline and also being gentle with yourself to know that there are certain things that are too ambitious or too unreasonable to tax yourself with all the time. It's not always going to be this, right?
Right.
Like we learned that in college, hopefully, that you can like sleep really, really well, you can party really hard, or you can work really hard. You can do maybe two at the same time, but like it's kind of a triangle that between self-care and the work and your own creativity, it's going to tip and balance. But thank you so much for being here, for sharing your time with us. It's been a delight to get your insights, and we can't wait to see what you do next.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, MaryLynn.